Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ajay Patel Show. My name is Ajay Patel, and here we are, episode 44. It seems like last week's episode got a lot of love. A lot of personal texts, good amount of traction as far as, views, comments, likes, and whatnot. Decent amount of turnaround of subscribers. Obviously we're not in the thousands yet, but you do see the traction. You see the difference when you put out one piece of content and then you're like, you know what? That didn't really work out too good. And then you also try to stay on top of, am I posting the links to this? Am I, posting the short content to this? Am I, at least engaging this more? Because I feel like that's been my biggest, not my biggest miss, right? Biggest miss will always just be like, have better content. But second thing is just like always putting it on my story. And I know people are probably getting annoyed where it's like, every single time I open up Instagram, he's just posting his links again. And I was conscious of that at first, but now I'm just like, who cares? I need the views. I need the listens. I don't care. Like, what do you expect to be on my story? Another, what I'm listening to? Some other article that someone else published? Like, it's gotten to this point where I'm just like, fuck it. I need to be more on top of this shit. And who knew? Actually, I was going to say who knew personal tragedy would be so relatable. But it's like everyone goes through it, right? Either everyone goes through it or they know someone else that have gone through it. Or it's just interesting to hear, right? Personal stories versus like, oh, yeah, you know what? I saw that in the news. He's talking about that shit again. Now, on that note, this week, I do have some stories from the news. I don't really have anything as deep as how to get a job. Just a quick recap for all my listeners from last week. If you're still out there, if you're still trying to get that job, just remember, just don't quit. Don't quit yet. Don't quit yet. Just keep on knocking. Be annoying. Be a LinkedIn whore, as Isha likes to call it. Just do what you got to do. This week, like I mentioned before, we have some stories from the news. I'll start with kind of what I've been up to this past week with Isha's birthday, my sister coming into town, and then a small Olympics recap because I feel like, it'd be nice to talk about, but it's not anything it's noteworthy. Along with the Mathew Perry death, which has now kind of been labeled as a murder. And then closing out with this interesting TikTok I found on this interesting story I found on TikTok from the Associated Press about kind of Indian parents getting thrown to the curb, where I'm pretty sure this was mainly in India, and we'll pull up the video when it's time to talk about it. And I found it super interesting because of just the generational difference and what's kind of happened with this new modern era and ideology change that wasn't there before. So starting with this past week, we had Isha's birthday. Now, I don't know who's always supposed to plan this, right? I think after the significant other comes into the picture, it doesn't really fall on the friends to, host a dinner. Oh, we should do this. We should do that. Of course, oftentimes it just falls on the birthday person, depending on what they want to do, right? If they want to have a brunch and invite 30 people and then send out that Splitwise afterwards, I get it. I don't know whether it's just us being in our unemployment phase or just a matter of like, hey, like we're in our 30s now. We're not going to plan some bottle service. We're not going to plan some elaborate birthday party right now. Along with, we want to keep it simple. Right? I know I want to keep it simple, but I don't want to dictate your birthday. So what do you want to do? Now, she wanted to do nothing at all. And I was like, okay, look, I'll force, a little bit, right? Where we need to do something. We need to at least commemorate the day. Just at least get out of the house. We need to get off of LinkedIn for a little bit. Don't worry about, tell me about yourself questions for a little bit. So we got out of the house and hung out with two of our friends, just had dinner, just a nice little birthday dinner, right? Get cute, dress up, go out, have a little wine, hang out, tell the waiter it's someone's birthday. They bring out a little cup of gelato with a candle in it, blow it out, go to sleep. This is that era of stuff for me. Maybe it's not an era, but it's just this time period where keeping it simple speaks to me more than the elaborate process and planning of things. Because I think it always works out. At the end of the day, you just want people you truly want there, alcohol, food, and then just the space, right? Oftentimes people go to a restaurant. I'm not the biggest fan of that because you kind of get tied to who's next to you. And sometimes you get a bad situation where it's like, oh shit, I got this person next to me. I love the house vibe. Or, when people kind of get those little small venues and you can walk around like cocktail hour kind of style. Now, this was super simple, right? A dinner with 4 people. It was me, Isha, Asha, and, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name. Hanali. Oops, my bad. Don't ignore that. But the simplicity of it is nice. I told y'all about my birthday last year where I just had friends at the house. We ordered pizza. And it was a fun time. I enjoyed it, right? You get to do the part with the parents and the family up until a certain hour. They go to sleep. And then you're just drinking with your friends. You're doing dumb shit, right? Maybe pulling out some video games, pulling out some board games. And that is just what I like more now. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good bottle service. I love a good bottle service. I love going out, listening to music, having a designated section for you and your party. It's always a fun time. I've had a couple of bad times, but it's normally a good time. But what are we going to do here? You're going to drop $3,000? Brother, you don't have a job right now. I don't have a job right now. We ain't got nothing. What are we doing here? Obviously, we want to host people, right? That's the best part of your birthday where it's like, I want to host this for other people to come celebrate me. Now, you don't have to bring me gifts or whatnot, but I just want to get together. It's just a good excuse. It's a good excuse in this line of just doing shit because we normally have to. Right? The only get-togethers that we have to get together at are normally weddings, bachelor parties, and, even baby showers are starting to fall off that menu. The weekly get-together has kind of dropped off a little bit. And what I'm trying to be more kind of aggressive about, and I won't speak for Isha as much, but I'm trying to get this, my social muscles kind of moving again, where you are in Los Angeles, right? I understand you don't have the most friends, but there's cool shit you can do here, right? There's cool things you can do here that aren't necessarily expensive. You can go to some bar outside, hang out. You can go to the beach, do this. You can go visit the Getty. I don't know. But just something, and along with, there's a lot of groups in this city that host these events. Oh my, like we're having wine and vinyl night, that we're having this comedy show, things like that, where it's like, oh, let's just go out and go do that for a couple of hours. We don't have to drop $100, $200. We might, but we also might just have fun. Go home, go to sleep, and you feel like you got out of the house. I get so tied to just staying in home. And I don't know whether it's like just that COVID residue on me or, just post-relationship, being in a relationship residue. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but it's just like you're staying in the house more. Your desire to go out has decreased. Maybe it's a money thing, but you just enjoy being home more. Now, can I just have people over at the house? I don't mind cooking for them. I don't mind doing all that stuff. Hanali's, fiance and herself invited us over. They ordered some food and it was a chill time where it's like, oh, nice. Like on a Friday night, I didn't just sit here and watch Lord of the Rings over and over again. I get to get out, talk some shit, Oh yeah. Hey, what do you think about the Mathew Perry death? You get to just get those muscles moving a little bit. Later in the week, my sister came to town along with my oldest nephew. They came for a Raksha Bandhan, which I think this kind of releases on the actual day of. But instead of me flying to Dallas, and that's what we normally do, right? I go to Dallas, the whole family can be there. We do the ceremony, we do the ritual, and then you just hang out. Instead, lucky enough, they were able to catch a couple flights, come here, hang out for the weekend, and it was awesome, where it's just like, oh, you guys don't get an opportunity to come here that frequently. Also, you get to step out of that 105-degree weather and come on over to a little sunny town where you can hang out outside for a good number of hours, enjoy just being in the shade. You want to, you want your oldest son or whatever. You want your little kid to play in the pool and be able to be outside versus being cooped up inside all day. This is a good kind of getaway to do that. She came over and we didn't really do much. It's truly landed Friday night, picked them up Saturday. We went to Erewhon because that's where we take everyone, right? We don't really leave the city because if you leave, you're spending a decent amount of time in the car. Unless it's, we have this one place in mind. We went to Erewhon and then came back home, chilled by the pool. Everyone took a nap, went to go get some boba tea in Beverly Hills. Came back home and that was it. And that's going back to the point of just keeping it simple. Keeping it simple is just where I just love when it works out, right? Because oftentimes you have people come to town and you're like, oh shit, there's a small obligation. There's a small obligation where it's like, I guess I kind of got to show you stuff, right? Maybe you're 0.0 of being in LA and you want to see the Hollywood sign. You want to go do Griffith Park. You want to go see Rodeo Drive. And then there's just people that have done all that stuff, right, throughout life. And then they come over and you still have something in mind, right? You still want to be like, oh shit, I do need to take them somewhere. I want to show them something, right? You're a host at the end of the day. You got to do something. But it works out so smoothly when they come over and it's just like, hey, I'm down to stay at home. In the hours that we can just be outside, we can chill and do something. But then I'm good. I have no desire to sit in a car for a couple of hours. I have no desire to go see Hollywood stars on the floor. So overall, happy Raksha Bandhan. If my sister's listening to this, I guess maybe I'll put some pictures in here. But moving on to our first, story. A little recap on the Olympics. I didn't watch too much of it. I was actually kind of surprised, especially with the ease of watching it, with it being on Peacock and every single thing was just available like that, right? You wanted to go back and watch the swimming finals, you can go watch it. Oh, you want to know when Katie Ledecky is swimming? You can go watch it. All of this stuff, it being on Peacock was so convenient, almost too convenient, right? Where it's like overload. But it kind of overlapped with that time frame I was telling y'all about last week, where it's just like, I'm in no mindset to watch this shit. I understand the group chat's blowing up about this and that, about some breakdancing, about this wrestling, about this cricket. I didn't care. I just didn't care. I would watch a couple of the USA basketball games. I would watch, the beast that is Simone Biles. And that was it. I really didn't watch that much stuff. Now, one leg of it that I wanted to talk about was this being on Peacock. We've talked about kind of these streaming giants taking over a lot of regular network TV. By the time next year rolls around, we'll see these NBA finals, the Super Bowl. I don't know what else is that, but these have now landed on these big streaming networks, whether it's Amazon Prime, not really Apple TV, HBO Max, in addition to what this was on, which is Peacock. Now, I liked it. I liked it because I have Peacock, right? It's something that didn't have any friction for me. I just happened to have the subscription. I don't know from what. I think it's reimbursed through American Express, and it was just convenient to have. Anything you wanted to look up, you can pull it up. They had a format that kind of mimicked the NFL Red Zone. For those that don't know what that is, it's basically as soon as something might happen, oftentimes sports gets a little boring, especially in some of those sports that have, like football, where, a team might get the ball on the 20-yard line on the opposite side, and then they're running these plays, and it may not be the most exciting thing. But then slowly they get to that end zone area, and it's like, oh shit, now I need to pay attention. Red zone is basically that. It's going between all these multiple events, in NFL cases, multiple games at the same time, and it's showing you what is about to have some action. Or it'll recap on some action that happened. Peacock had this for the Olympics. Genius idea. Super helpful. Now, kind of arguing against that, where I kind of liked the events being rare, I liked when you had to turn NBC on to view Michael Phelps at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where it's just like, oh, you have to tune into this game, to tune into this network at this hour to watch this event. And if you miss it, you better go catch that shit on YouTube. Now, I understand that's the old enemy talking, right? Obviously, this was much more convenient for someone that, maybe has some stuff going on. They can come back, watch the entire recap. And I guess overall, it was nice. But I could see someone that doesn't have Peacock. And I think for this particular streaming service, the cost of entry is lower. So nice on that part. Other Olympic news, we already talked about the basketball thing. This one person everyone's been kind of talking about is this breakdancer from Australia who has a PhD in breakdancing, apparently. Goes by the name of, it is a lady by the name of Raygun. I don't have her full name here, but Raygun. And she basically had a clip that went viral, right? Just like we talked about the Hawk Tuah girl. This lady just happened to be in the Olympics competing in breakdancing. And a lot of people had these, I was going down the TikTok rabbit hole about it, where in the qualifiers, she got in by taking some loophole. Her husband was one of the judges for the qualifiers. She beat this dude. Oh my gosh, she's so horrible. I could do this. That was the comment that was kind of circulating a lot. Oh, I could do this. I could do this. I could do this. And then she had to publish a video where it's like, hey guys, the Australian government, has been very supportive. If you guys could just lay off the hate a little bit. Now, as soon as that happens, the hate is only going to double down. Never, ever, ever should you make a video saying, hey guys, please lay off the hate. It's only going to double down. The internet is the most vicious place on earth. These people don't care. They're on their couch eating Cheetos and shit. Now, she wasn't the worst dancer. Do I think I could beat her? Probably. I'm a decent dancer. But there was no point where I was watching her being like, oh, I should have gone to the Olympics. I have no desire to. I have no desire to put in that effort. Also, I would get my ass destroyed. Pause. I would get absolutely destroyed in the Olympics, in breakdancing, in anything. Now, if you got, maybe I can pull up the clip of her dancing on the side where it wasn't the worst. The way people were kind of talking to me about it over the phone and just through text and stuff, where it's like, oh my gosh, like she has no idea what she's doing. She has no idea what she's doing. It looked like that old hip hop video where the lady's like, okay, first you got to go 1 and then 1, 2, and then you got to dip your shoulders with it. It was the similar vibe where it's like these people study this art form. Now, there's a different science to it where they study the art form via, books and studies and journals versus people that study the art form literally being on the street, right? They're dancing on the street. They're joining these side competitions. They're just in the art form versus just studying from afar. Now, look, whether Australia sent that person, the next best person, the person that might have actually been the best, they weren't winning. It's Australia. It's breakdancing. Never have you seen a good breakdancing Australian. What are y'all talking about? No point in time where you like, oh shit, they might win. Oh, they should have sent a better person, so then Australia would have stood a better chance. No. The only people, back in the day, I used to try to get into, dance battles in college, a little bit before that. Nowadays, it's like these motherfuckers know way too much. I used to try to get in a battle. And I used to just watch the person, see what they're doing, and then be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to get out there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I had 3 moves I would always go to, right? I had 3 moves that I would always go to that I'd be like, if I can just land these 3, I win. I'll get a round of applause, and then you win. And then you walk off. You don't have to own the dance floor, right? You kill the vibe if you do that. But never pick a battle you're going to lose. Now, if I saw an Australian person in there, I'd feel confident. If I saw Raygun in there, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe I can take her. But that's the point, right? The confidence is already there. Now, if I saw any Asian person in there, they didn't even have to move, right? If they were like, hey, this Asian person's right here, and would you like to break dance, try to battle them? Hell no. No way. They're like, you just know, right? The same way if a spelling bee comes on and you see an Indian kid go up there, more than likely they're going to win the whole thing. It's just like the internet will do whatever they want. Now, I don't agree with the whole like, oh, she cheated the system. She shouldn't have been here. She did a horrible job. It's like, bro, that's just what it is, right? Maybe they got an allotted spot for that country, for that sport, and they sent that person. Who cares? Whether they sent her, like I just said, her or the best person, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The internet taking advantage of it is just that's just what you get. Whether you're her in breakdancing, and I just watched the Simone Biles documentary, or if you're Simone Biles where you're at the top of your game in the 2020 Olympics and you just walk away because you're just not feeling right mentally, the internet will have their way with you. Will have their way with you. To close that up, they're going to be in Los Angeles in 2028. I thought, the closing ceremony was pretty cool. The whole Tom Cruise thing, bringing the torch on over, Snoop Dogg popping out onto a beach that was relatively clean and the water was blue. I don't know. Look, this is Hollywood, right? This is Hollywood. They can make anything look like it needs to appear. Beaches don't look like that. There's a lot of homeless people. There's a lot of dirty folks out there, and the water is not that clean. There's literally warnings about all the, flesh-eating amoeba shit out here. But for the Olympics, when you're on, Peacock, you got to put on a show. And I think it's pretty cool. Like I don't know how frequent it is that the Olympics land in America. And so it is pretty neat to see that it will be here in a city that I live in currently. I don't know, how long that looks like. But it'd be a pretty dope thing to go to. I don't know how this city's going to deal with it, especially with, everyone knows about the traffic problems. Oh, they're going to need some public transport stuff. And I have seen this kind of slow cleanup. Now we're 4 years out, but I can see where it's like, oh, okay, it's going to take that long to make the cleanup that is necessary, where they're going to be just herding? What's that terminology when you're gathering a bunch of sheep? Herding, gathering the herd, whatever. They're going to be moving all the problems into an isolated area, right? If there's a bunch of homeless people out here in, let's say, Inglewood, and that's where a lot of the venues are, they're going to clean that area up. Are there a bunch of houses we can knock down and maybe put up a street? Let's give them some checks, get them out of here. The transformation happens immediately, right? It's probably already started before it was even announced. It makes sense. I don't know how this city's going to deal with it, but I think it is pretty cool that it will be here in good old Hollywood. Speaking of Hollywood, the story starts to unfold about Mathew Perry's death. Now, like I said, the internet is a scary place, but what's scarier is actual people. Actual people will literally do anything to you. They'll do anything. There's the most evilest people in this world. The internet is just the internet, right? You can close your laptop, you can close the app, you can delete a comment that you don't like, and you can walk away. I understand it's not the easiest thing, right? Some shit gets to you. Trust me, I know. But what's worse than that is people in real life. Truly, 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 people in real life. Now, what the story was is basically Mathew Perry had a couple of doctors with a couple of dealers, and they were pumping his ass up with ketamine. Now, it could have been a lot more than ketamine, and they're trying to keep the story under wraps a little bit, but that's the story that I know, where they're pumping him up with all this stuff, along with taking advantage of who he is. Right? We obviously know that he had an addiction problem. He came out, openly talked about it. He's a person of higher financial status, right? If you tell him the bag of weed is $50, he'll probably pay $50. They were just, so the kind of, and I don't know how this investigation happens. Maybe a doctor got caught, who snitched on who, or if it's just, maybe it was a private team where it's like, hey, we didn't think that he would just overdose in his hot tub. In addition to those two doctors and two dealers, there was the live-in assistant that he had hired. And not live-in as in, like he was old and he was getting his diapers changed, but his assistant. Now, like I said, people are evil, man. People are evil. And I can fully see a world. It is more believable to me to see a world where they got his ass. Like they set something up. They're like, hey, we just got to get him to OD. If we get him to OD, then people won't bat an eye. They'll start painting a little story. They might have another little friends reunion, and then we're good. We'll get our payout. But I guess their payout was happening before the death, where it's like, hey, he's going to buy more. He's going to keep on buying more. And I don't even think he knows what the good stuff is. So let's just give him this piece of shit, and we'll get $20,000 off of it. Over and over again, you start building a lot of money. They got his ass. And then when we're coordinating with the person that is, his right-hand person, right, his assistant, you can paint any story that you want. Now, what kind of like, this didn't surprise me, right? Them kind of getting him, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, what? There's no way that happened. This is, like I just said, this is Hollywood. This is kind of fandom, stardom in general, where this is what happens to stars. Obviously, people that have addiction problems may be a little bit more susceptible to this, but I'm not saying Matthew Perry was anywhere near the status of, a Michael Jackson, a Prince, Elvis. Who did they also get recently? Amanda Bynes. He might have been up there with Amanda Bynes, right? You're talking about a person that is on the most popular TV series ever. But this is what happens. For all those big stars, when you get to a certain point, they just want you to perform. They want you to perform. Now, I understand the Matthew Perry thing is a little bit different, right? They were just kind of taking advantage, right? They were buying low, selling high to his ass. And that's what they teach in any financial school. But there's just like a morality to it. The morality to it walks out the window when money comes in the door. All these famous pop stars. How do we keep them from, bringing in more money? Hey, Michael Jackson, do you want to go on another tour? It'll be zero beneficial to you, but we'll give you all the necessary drugs you need, right? We'll give you the stuff to keep you awake. We'll give you the stuff to help you train. We'll give you the stuff to help you sleep. Brother, they give you anything you need because you can pay for it. They don't care. Next thing you know, he overdoses. Oh, yeah, he probably wasn't able to keep control. All of the blame then goes on to the artist, right? After the person dies, the storytelling can turn into whatever. The media can take your ass out like that. And then they can put whatever narrative they want into circulation. Elvis, I didn't know so much, right? I'd heard the story and it's like, okay, he died young. I didn't know too much about him. The Michael Jackson stuff, obviously that stuff unraveled during my lifetime. Prince stuff I didn't keep up with too much. And then you see this stuff kind of just painted across every single avenue. The Nickelodeon thing, where Amanda Bynes was one of the biggest children along with teenager and then probably young adult star there was. I didn't realize how big this person was until I saw that documentary where it's like, damn, you know what? I did grow up watching a lot of her shit. I grew up watching, all that shit. What was it called? What I Think About You, the Amanda Bynes Show. Like, I watched all this stuff. And then it gets to the point where it's like, we need to keep her making us money. Now, either they take advantage of her financially, whether they just like mentally, whatever it is, whatever they got to do, they'll do. And then as soon as you can't perform anymore, oh, they have a drug problem. Or as soon as you choose to kind of deviate from the plan, right? You're talking about big time executives here. These are $1 million machines. They don't want you messing with that. You're one person in that wheel. They can get you out of there like that. Amanda Bynes, where if you see her now, right, people kind of take pictures of her on the street, and she doesn't look anything like she did in the TV days, right? She got tats. She looks like she's on drugs, or hopefully she's recovering, whatever it is. And there's a certain sentiment sentiment to it now after people kind of see like, oh, damn, they did kind of get her ass. Whereas if that Nickelodeon documentary never drops, it's like, oh, she has a drug problem. She couldn't control herself, yada, yada, yada. All this stuff. Addiction, the issue of addiction is a whole separate podcast in itself. Now look at who they're trying to get next. Good old Kanye West. One of my favorite artists of all time. Top 5, 100%. Maybe top 3. I understand a lot of people don't like him because of how bombastic he is with some of his comments. People think he's racist. Oh my gosh, yada, yada. Like you're talking about one of the most talented artists of our generation. And someone I do not think necessarily means any harm. He's just thinks on a different wavelength and doesn't know how to communicate. So when shit comes out, it comes out a little bit wild. Now look at what they're doing to him. And he tried to come out and talk about it. Hey, they're putting all this shit in me because I'm trying to lose weight for y'all and I'm trying to find a way to do it. So they got me on this. They got me on this. They're trying to do this. They're taking away my kids. They're pushing me out of the media. Now, this was a lot easier to do when media was a little bit more contained back in the day, right? When Dave Chappelle kind of got outcasted as a crackhead and he had to go off to Africa. I mean, he didn't have to go off to Africa, but he chose to do that. The media was contained to that. He could have had a small press conference in Ohio, but that wouldn't have gotten anywhere. Not without these Instagram reels and TikToks and, quick media like there is now. Kanye West, where he comes out and says, hey, look, I'm on this drug, I'm on this drug, I'm on this drug. And then they're trying to do this to me. Okay, hey, let's slow down. They might catch us. They might figure us out. Now, look, if anything happens, obviously I don't want anything to happen to him. But you can kind of see where it's like, why would we be surprised? This is what happens to any artist that they want to control, keep pumping money out of until they're done with them. Until they're done with them, then they throw them to the side. It's like, all right, who's next? Who can we get next? That's what I'm saying. As far as like the internet can be a scary place, but people are much worse. Now, LA is a weird place. LA/Hollywood, more so Hollywood, right? The world of Hollywood and entertainment is a weird place. Now, I don't know much about it, right? I haven't dabbled that much in it. But you meet some people. Oh, you meet some people. And oftentimes when you have a good encounter with someone where it's like, damn, this person was really cool. Like you start chopping it up with them. Oh, what? You do that? Oh, that's awesome. They have a good sense of humor and whatnot. Oftentimes they're not even from California. More than likely they're from Houston. They're from some Atlanta, some small city in Oklahoma. And you have the best of time with them. The people that you meet from here that have gotten into this world of entertainment, they've almost gotten like this PTSD. Now how would I explain this? I'm at the world of people. I'm at the table of people that have not even scratched the surface. Understand that good, right? I'm at the bottom of the barrel. I meet people that have been an extra on a set for 20 plus years. People will tell you, I was on season 1 of this show. I said, oh, what were you? A police officer. Did you have any lines? Nope. So you're still doing the same thing in season 6. You haven't really progressed at all. Now I understand, right? If it was a significant extra where it's like, oh, you got to be that person. Sometimes the insignificant person becomes quite significant. Look at like Reggie from Bad Boys, where he was part of a hilarious scene. But if we didn't see him again for another 3 Bad Boys, we wouldn't have really clocked it. I'm talking about bottom of the barrel, where there's no notoriety to you. You're literally a person filling up space. It's a weird world where they get into this kind of, is it dementia? Is it a state of mind? Just a state of mind where they don't know how to get out of this. But they think that if they continuously do the same thing, their break is coming. Their break is coming, and they know the world better than anyone else, right? Oh, I'm from LA. I was here when films used to be in Palm Springs. Now it's all in Hollywood, yada, yada. Who cares? There's a new era of people here doing dances on TikTok, making millions. I understand that, like, you know, the beauty of the art form of film and whatnot, but you need to get on board. Now, that's just kind of like the world of like not really making it. But what I'm saying here is like there's a weird vibe of people. Anything you say will offend them. Anything you say, they got something smarter to say. Anything you say, you know, oh, you know, well, actually, it's like, you know, actually. The worst person, the actually person. Oftentimes, here's a quick tip for y'all. When you catch yourself in a conversation and you haven't asked a question in 10, 15 minutes and you continuously talk at the person, take a step back. Take a step back. Because I guarantee you that person's not really having a good time. And they're only talking to you because they kind of have to right now. Now, it's one thing if you're entertaining, right? Are you making them laugh? Are you just telling a story? Are you just recapping something? But if you're just talking at them and I have to keep on asking you the question, oh, you know, like, what is that? What about that? What about this? And nothing about you in the conversation seems like you're open to learning or you have some type of knowledge you're missing. I guarantee you that person's not really enjoying your time. Now, closing out the Matthew Perry thing, it doesn't surprise me. I hope this, you know, gets better. Probably won't, but on to the next story. Next story, Associated Press. I'm going to play the TikTok and then we can kind of recap it a little bit.
दिल्ली में छोड़ दिया तो मैं 2-3 दिन एकदम यहाँ भटका खूब रोना गाना करके खाना वाना नहीं खाया तो मैंने वैसे भूखा भूखा.
We've traveled to India to see how it's dealing with its aging population. Elder care in India has long been based on children taking care of their own aging parents at home. That remains true today, but advocates for the elderly say they're seeing a troubling trend of neglect.
A lot of people are found in gutters. A lot of people are found naked without any clothes.
In the worst cases, they're seeing elders abandoned by their own children at hospitals, at temples, and on the streets.
मेरे को बोला कि यहाँ पर रुको मैं डॉक्टर के पास मिल के आता करके बोल के चला गया. मेरे आया नहीं फिर मुड़ के उन लोगों.
Elders getting abandoned. Now, for all my South Asian listeners, for all my Asian listeners in general, actually, you'll kind of understand this. Now, I'll speak a little bit more on the Indian side of the house because that is what data I have. But in Indian culture, it is quite popular for the kids to take on the responsibilities of the parents. Now, that doesn't just include taking on the mortgage, taking on the bills, taking on, you know, tasks. It includes taking on the task of the parents. They get to a certain age. Hey, you know what? You move in with me. You move in with me and then we'll have this kind of system going. I'll take care of your, you know, your prescriptions. I'll take you to your doctor appointments, all that stuff. Or there's an idea of you never leave the house. Oftentimes this is for the male in the family, right? You get married, the female that you're getting married leaves their house, getting married to leaves their house and comes over to your house. So now it is you, your wife, still in your parents' house. The understanding is when they pass away, when they get old, whatever, the house will be yours. Everything that is theirs will be yours, right? They're not kind of just doing this to do this so then you can serve them and you're left with nothing. The idea is, hey, take care of us for as long as you can, or I guess as long as possible. And, you know, we'll do stuff in return, right? We'll cook. Can't clean much, but we'll try to give something back. Now, I don't hate the mindset, right? I don't hate the mindset of parents living with the generation after them. I personally don't want that, but I am not against it. I think you do need space, but there's still an idea of, I like the validity in it. I've always been someone that worships my parents, right? I've never been big into religion. I've never been, oh, thank God for this. I've always been, I have certain things in life because of my parents or because of family in general, right? They have made certain sacrifices. They have done this and that. They've taken out loans. They've moved to a different country. They've moved, they've taken on whatever it is, where they've taken on these sacrifices and sacrifice their own time for my betterment. That is who I've always been grateful to. Now, there's a certain amount that can get pushed. Going back to this story, where there's this generation of parents getting abandoned by their kids. Now, I found this quite interesting because I don't think this will happen for my generation, right? Obviously, there's time to find out. But as far as that generation before me, right? My parents' relationship to their parents, and from what I've just seen, right? All of my takes are not just based on what happens in my family. It's just what I've seen in general. I think things evolved at a much higher rate and for the better. There is a different level of respect desired. There's a different level of kind of like, you can't talk to me like that. You can't do that to me. I won't serve you. I won't do this. So my parents were part of that class of class of Indians, immigrants that came over to America. Now, the system was, hey, you go over to that country, make a name for yourself, figure it out, make some money, have some kids, have those kids become doctors, and you'll be good. You'll be set for life. And the system does work. The system does work. That, like, I understand, the social pressure, they should be able to be whatever they want. Shut up. Seriously, if you aim them towards the doctor, path of life, and they fail and become something else, right? Maybe they're not making as much as a doctor, but you still steered them in the correct direction, where education needs to be your kind of main point of view. That's also all they knew. All of this stuff didn't exist, right? I didn't know that you could buy out a bunch of real estate, or I didn't know you could build out a YouTube channel. I didn't know you could go to the NBA, right? The arts, all of that stuff, that's new. So for that first generation of Americans to come over here and say, hey, you know what? I need my kids to be so focused on education, and I'm going to push them to a certain degree. And that maybe kind of builds up resentment. Maybe that builds up some, whatever the feeling is towards that. Now you kind of add on this layer of their parents, right? That first generation of Americans have their mission. They send their kids, or they're having kids. They're trying to send them to college so then they can be better off in life. And then by that time, they'll also probably be good, right? They'll be able to pay off their house. They'll have cars paid off. More than likely, they'll be able to pay for hospice care and whatnot when they get to that age. The generation before them, right? The generation that never left India or whatever country. There's a certain level of things just never evolved. Things just never evolved for them. And they come over with this mindset of, hey, you still need to serve me. You still need to do these obligations, whether it's religious, whether it's cultural, that they expect out of their kids, right? Hey, you need to do the dishes. Hey, you need to take me to my doctor's appointments. You need to do this for me because I am your parent. Now, it'd be one thing if that was the setup and there was, like a mutual respect, love, and connection there. But I think what has kind of fallen through the cracks is this idea of you have to serve me no matter what. Right? It is servitude at the end of the day. It sounds negative to me, and maybe it's not to the broader audience, but it is servitude. And it's not crazy, but it's wild that can exist with no type of appreciation, right? There can still exist this mental abuse. Maybe it's physical abuse where they're hitting their kids and the kids are 45 years old, 50 years old. Look, I'm teetering around all of this to say, I think that generation that didn't leave America, that had their kids leave, or maybe it's just this generation in general, I think they just fucked around and found out. Truly, I think they just found out the hard way in this era that has gotten much softer, much more affectionate, in touch with their emotions. Oh, you know what? Maybe I don't have to get spoken to like that. Oh, maybe I don't have to do that job. Maybe I don't have to serve my husband every night. I don't have to make them dinner. I don't have to be a stay-at-home wife. I can have power myself. Now, there's a lot of saltiness that can probably come from your parents and their parents, where they're like, what the hell is this? You can have a job. You can do this. You can wear that. You can drink alcohol. You can eat meat. Well, you're a horrible person. You're definitely going to hell. Whatever the correlation is, you're a horrible person. You should repent. You should go to the temple. You need to pray for forgiveness. You need to like there's so much just shit and jealousy, saltiness, where they're watching this generation that I was able to come have a fulfilling life for themselves. Sure, they had an arranged marriage, whatever it is. And then that saltiness just leads to so much resentment, right? You start talking to your kids a certain way, or talking to your kids a certain way. You start being a little bit more disrespectful. You start demanding a certain thing. Your whatever your bills and stuff. You lose this idea of, let me treat this kid like an adult that they are now. Instead, I want them to serve me. I want them to do this for me. I want them to be happy at the same time. And that doesn't exist, right? That doesn't exist. So then seeing this story where there's this, it's becoming more and more popular of abandoning that older generation, right? These new era people, and I'm not even talking about the people that have moved to America, right? This is just Indians in general. I think this article is just focused on India, where they're tired of this shit. Hey, you know what? You're not going to do that to me. I'm not going to keep taking care of you like this. I'm not going to continuously be bound by the shit that you're going to say to me on a daily, the shit that you're going to do to me on a daily. I am going to find a way to put you somewhere else. Now, oftentimes that looks like, let's say, a retirement home, or, just some different house. Maybe I'll get them some apartment, whatever it is. I'm going to isolate them out of my life. So then, sure, I'll go pick up their prescriptions. I'll take them to their weekly dentist appointment, but I don't have to have them in my life at a constant day to day. And every single day we just get into these constant fights, right? There's only so much time that you should be spending with anyone in your life, whether that's your partner, whether that's your kids, whether that's your parents, even your friends. You got to separate and then come back together, but you got to separate. There's this just resentment that builds up over time. So the alternative may look like something of that nature, right? Some type of isolation. What happens a lot is that generation that comes over, the generation, I keep confusing myself with this generation to generation. So what I'm just going to keep on saying is the parents that have kind of abused their powers a bit too much. I think what they then come to find out is they don't really have anything, right? They didn't build up the most wealth. They operated in a particular way and they made certain, let's say, certain decisions in life. What skills do they have? Or is it just a matter of, hey, you know what? Because I took care of my parents at a certain age, I can then become that. But the ideology and just the almost humanity behind it has evolved, where that doesn't exist anymore. You can't continue the same actions from generation to generation. And I think this generation has taken a bigger jump. Maybe it's Western influence. Maybe it's just the world influence, right? Hey, maybe we should just lay off the hate a little bit. Things have gotten worse. Things have also gotten better. I understand. Now let's talk a little bit about my point of view. I'm obviously second generation. My dad's parents live in London. My mom's mom did not live with us for the most part. Well, actually, that's probably a lie. She has lived with us for the most part. Now, when that bickering happens, right? What's the alternative? What can you do? You have a daughter that has this obligation where she wants to be a good daughter, right? On paper, a good daughter. I took care of my parents. I took care of my mom. I did this. I did that. And, you know, I saw it all the way through. Salute. But then at the same time, these are your years. You completed the mission. And this is what I tell my mom over and over again, where it's like, you completed the mission. You had kids. You raised them to be successful. Sure, one of them's unemployed right now, but the other one's a doctor. You did good. 50% hit rate. That's amazing. But you completed the mission. So now enjoy this time, right? All those years that you spent pinching pennies, buying us Eggo waffles and yourself just eating butter and toast. Go do what you want to do. Don't be bogged down by the responsibilities of your mom being under the same roof or certain expectations she has, right? Go live the life that you want to live. But it's tough. It's tough, and I understand, right? I'm not in those shoes. Now you add on the layer of how much disrespect girls get over guys. In Indian culture, and I'm talking about the servitude. It is not oftentimes, let's stop trying to be political about it. It falls on the lady. Oh, the girl needs to do this. The girl needs to do this. The girl needs to do this and that. Man is king. Man is king. Now, obviously, like I said, with the generational jump, we've made that kind of shift where it's like, oh, actually, you know what? The guy can cook. The guy can cook for himself. He can clean for himself. The lady, if she wants to go get a job, go get a job. Go do whatever you want. There's this freedom now that it existed before, but it was frowned upon. So now you have this kind of weird conundrum where, let's say my mom will say something to her mom and her mom just won't listen. No, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Now, if a guy were to say it to her, right? Oh, she might be a little bit more receptive to it. She's just part of a different generation. I'm talking about my grandma here. Now, I understand it, right? I'm not saying it's correct, but I understand. I love old people. I do love old people. As scarred and as mean as they might be, I do love them. Because it's like that. I will never understand that generation. I will never understand what you went through, how you went through it, what you had to deal with. I personally think I have a very easy life. There are some tough things, right? A bunch of shit that it's almost like an overflow of shit you got to do nowadays. But I still have an appreciation for that generation. Going back to how do you deal with that, right? You're trying to be a good daughter on paper, but at the same time, you want to live your life. Bro, my mom won't even drink alcohol in front of her mom because she just doesn't want that look, right? She's not going to say anything, but she doesn't even want that look where it's like, I'm frowning upon you for this. You are not being the on paper good daughter. You get stuck in this cycle. And at the same time, your life is literally passing you by. But what do? Right? She doesn't have her own house. She doesn't have other people that'll take her in. We don't want to afford an apartment because then it'll just be more work. Oh, the faucet broke. Oh, this light bulb's out. Oh, this, right? You almost stack the problems on top of that by thinking you're solving one of them. And then you just have this mental this mental marathon day to day, like I said, where it's like every single day, right? My mom doesn't work right now. She's at the house. She's found this new life in taking care of her grandkids. But other than that, she's at the house. My grandma's at the house. So the bickering happens way often than not. But what do? There's no space that you can get. You think, oh, okay, I can solve this by putting them over here. But then you're just taping up one problem to create a handful of more problems. And I understand, I'm speaking from my perspective, but I do think it's a very common thing that we've been seeing from this generation that has had more freedom, right? There's this jealousy and resentment that I have seen grandparents that have dealt with it good, right? Very nice grandparents where they're much more receptive. They are receptive to the change. And I see that in my parents where it's like, hey, I understand you want to make certain changes in your life. You want to do this and that. You want to move to California. That's awesome. You know, I obviously have a stance of I would like you here, right? My parents didn't want me to move. I would like you here, but if you want to do that, then you should explore that. My grandma, oh my gosh, hell fell upon my mom, right? She won't say it to me because man is king. But she got an earful and my mom had my back where it's like, hey, when you were young, you did this and that. You moved from city. You exercised the same power that he exercised when you were a kid by being a rebel back then. Now it's much more common, right? I could have moved to a different country. I could have done whatever I wanted to do. And now with this kind of softer generation, right? My parents, I'm seeing as the softer generation than their parents. The openness to taking care of them is there because it's not expected of you, right? You're more open to, taking over certain bills. Maybe you want to buy them a house. Maybe you want to buy them a car. You want to bring them into your house if you have the mental fortitude, if you and your partner agree on it. Where it's like, you know what? I do want to take care of you to the best of my ability. When you are starting to have a tough time getting around, walking, figuring shit out, whether it's bills, how to get a doctor's appointment in this era of technology, I get it. It's hard to keep up with this shit. But because that expectations isn't there, it's like, oh, you know what? I'm down to do this. Because of what you gave to me, I want to try to give it back to you, obviously to some extent. Right? I want to start my own life. I want to have kids. I want to do this and that. I want to start going down that road myself. So to wrap it all up, I thought it was just an interesting story to talk about. Thought it was a little bit relatable. And then also just be nice to your kids. Obviously be nice to your parents. They don't know what they don't know. If they're being mean to you or whatnot, they're just a little salty. Keep your head up like your nose is bleeding. And with that all being said, ladies and gentlemen, my name has been Ajay Patel. I will see you guys next week. And goodbye.